We are back again on Locked On Guardians. While the hot stove is frozen, there's still a lot of fun things to talk about. We're going to get into the Marlins. We're going to get into the third base position. But I just want to take a moment and say, while he might be a rival, give a moment and wish the best to Liam Hendriks as he begins his battle with cancer this offseason. So I just want to start off with good vibes for Liam, his family, and everything they're going through on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I also want to take a moment and introduce myself. I'm Jeff Ellis, sometimes teacher, all-time parent, not all-time great, but all the time I'm a parent, an occasional writer, and many-time podcaster. We're approaching 900 episodes here on Locked On Guardians.
Wow, really moving along. I like it. Justin Latta, I guess mostly podcaster with you, sometimes writer at Next Year in Cleveland now, sometimes podcast other places, full-time tweeter when baseball season starts. I've really not tweeted a lot this offseason, to be honest with you. I've taken a real break on tweeting. I'm still on Twitter, but I'll tweet a lot more during baseball season. So if you followed me this offseason and we get to minor league baseball season starting, expect a barrage of tweets. I'll be out there tweeting about minor league baseball. So just be careful what you wish for.
Speaking of tweets, should I do everyone's favorite thing where I just completely leave Justin in the lurch and throw him something after we spent like 30 minutes planning for the show that we've not talked about?
Do it.
Here we go. So I threw out this tweet because I threw out a tweet that I was sad didn't get more traction. So I think Colt Emerson this year has a chance to be the first prep player drafted from Ohio in a long time in the first round. Can you name the last prep player from Ohio taken in the top 30 picks?
Position player or pitcher?
Anything.
Chad Billingsley from Defiance?
You are correct. Good job. 2003. That is the last player.
Hey!
You nailed it. I had to say the top 30 because there is Matthew Smorrell in 2012, but he was a supplemental pick. But yeah, you nailed it. See? Hey.
I remember.
And there was no chatter about this. This is just all how good Justin is. Just putting that out there right now. But yeah,
I just know that there's that pocket of Ohio that has random players that Defiance, because Defiance had who was the Cleveland prospect from Defiance? Dace Kime. Dace Kime was a Defiance kid, right?
Yeah, they had a run there.
Defiance has had a bunch of interesting dudes.
It's like one of my favorite random draft history, like random bits of funny information is, I might get these years wrong. I believe it's 87 and an 86, the top prep player both years drafted from the state of Ohio. One from Moeller High School and one from Dublin High School in Columbus. Oh, no. Sorry, I thought we had a freeze there for a second. My computer's being funny. But the Moeller one from Cincinnati, most people know it's Ken Griffey Jr., but the Dublin guy was Kent Merker. So first player taken in the entire draft.
I would not have gotten those.
Yeah, that's just kind of random funny bits. That's, it's right up there with the fact that Cleveland picked 2, meaning they had the worst record in baseball right between the Griffey years. So if they could just have been horrible that in-between year, they would have had Griffey. But instead, they picked on the 2 years outside of Griffey. They missed Griffey. But they're, worst team in the American League those 2 other years, just not the Griffey year. So let's get into what we talked about. Giovanni Soto was traded. This affects the American League Central. He went to, and of course, Gregory Soto. Yeah, Giovanni was who I typed into autopilot. Gregory Soto. And then I typed it again. My goodness, I was sick over the weekend. I still got some brain fog. But Gregory Soto was traded.
Which one did you get? I'm curious. Did you get the Cubs catcher or the former Guardians Indians reliever?
The catcher. No one remembers the guy that they got for Johnny Peralta, who I thought was going to be a solid reliever at one point in time. He might have been like on the outside of a top 10 prospect list for me, or maybe even inside. Those are pretty dark days when they traded for him. But I think Soto was interesting for a lot of reasons. Maybe number one is because how polarizing this deal was. A lot of people viewed it as like, that's all they got. And then others are like, that's a good return. Now I have to reveal some bias here. Back when I worked at Scout, I wrote up Matt Verling very positively. He was a guy who always had good high school data and then went to the university that shall not be named that managed to have the worst developmental track record, where if you listen to the show, of course, I really mean Notre Dame. Verling just did not develop well, but I think he's a potential starter for them this year in the outfield. I like Verling. They got a backup, and I don't know. I mean, some people like Donnie Sands. I think he is at best a backup. So I think, they got two backups and a potential starter. So I actually think it's a solid return. Like it's a good net for both teams. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my overall view. I think it's a good net return for both squads. It's certainly better than giving Craig Kimbrell $10 million.
Yeah, I mean, Soto only had 1 year team control left.
I think two.
Was it two? Okay. I think it was one, but maybe you're right.
No, because you get him for 23, 24, and 25. It's 3 years of control.
Wow. Okay. 3 years of control, I look at it a little bit differently. I thought maybe they would get a little more for a reliever of 3 years of control.
And a lefty.
Soto's been and a lefty. Soto's been inconsistent in his career. The walk rate's kind of high. He's not like a frontline reliever, but he's a solid, seventh inning guy on a good team, I should say. But I mean, Detroit did well. They got a platoon outfielder who is an okay. I think it has a lot of splits. Yeah. Not sure how he's going to play defensively out in that outfield in Detroit. We'll see. Nick Maton's a good backup, although right now Roster Resource has him starting at third base for them, which is kind of scary. That's not good. They should do something about that. And Donnie Sands, like you say, is a backup. I think it's got a lot of depth. I think they trade him for depth. I mean, like I said, Veerling, who was the guy they ran out in the outfield last year that signed with the White Sox?
Victor Reyes, the guy they cut.
Yeah. Like I think Veerling's an upgrade over Victor Reyes. Yeah. Nick Maton is like solid, although he won't get to play. He'll get to play against Phil Maton more, which is good because he's in the AL. Good for him. His brother, former Guardians great, or Indians great, whatever you want to say. They just got a lot of depth. I think maybe you could say you should have got a little bit more for a guy with 3 years of control, but it's not like Soto's an elite reliever. He's just a good reliever. So I think they did fine getting depth. I don't know I guess it raises their floor in the short term a little bit, and maybe their long term. I don't know. It's not a deal I think that's going to have a major impact unless they suffer some injuries, I guess. Which they could, because, I mean, you're relying on Austin Meadows to come back from vertigo and other issues. And right now their left fielder is Keel Badu, and he had a horrible year last year. I guess Veerling and Badu, maybe platoon. I don't know. Could be interesting. I don't hate the deal.
Verling is interesting that he played center field, right field, left field, third base, second base, and first base last year. The only positions he didn't play were shortstop and catcher. He played everywhere else on the diamond. Multiple games, first base being the least, so he can cover a few spots, and he's always had kind of an intriguing profile. He walks at a good rate, doesn't strike out too much. I think it's going to be the perfect situation where he can just get thrown into Detroit and see if he can do anything, like see if he can be that league average bat that I've kind of projected him to be for a while. So that's where I view it. I think it's, when nothing is happening, a trade like this gets to become a bigger deal than it should be. So it became a bigger deal than it should be. But I think, yes, I agree with you. It raises their floor. And I can't fault them with as bad as that lineup was a year ago, being like, let's just bring in 3 fresh faces and see what they can do.
They needed the depth. There's no doubt. Yeah. They did not have a lot of depth last year. And these guys, they are. I mean, I like it because this essentially says Eric Haas is their starting catcher for 2023. So good. I'm happy for Eric Haas, obviously, former Clevelander and Ohio State commit, and unfortunately a Michigan guy, but good dude. So I'm happy for him, and Sands will be a nice backup for him. It's a nice depth. I don't know, though. Their bench was pretty iffy before. It's not great now, but it's better than it was.
and this is where I have to do the obligatory. There was a time when I covered the minors where Eric Haas wasn't a prospect anymore. Like he had fallen on hard times as a prospect, was like probably going to get let go at the end of the year. And that dude worked his butt off to like kind of like change his swing, change his approach. I mean, he did everything you could do. And he's now a major leaguer because of it. So again, just a moment of like Eric Haas. Sad he got away, but again, praise the dude.
Mm-hmm.
We have an interesting catching quote, but we're going to get to that in a moment here. We also want to talk about the Marlins because they were all over the news as well on today's Locked On Guardians. But first, let's talk about our friends over at Bet Online. They're our title sponsor and your number one source for sports betting info, news, and stats and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. They've got it covered at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those on BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. I don't think they're associated with Bernie Kosar.
Too soon. That was too soon.
Too soon.
That was no.
Listen, you can't work for an NFL team and do that. Like, it just, I'm sad to see him go. Not that I watch any football this year, but it's not a good look to have to fire him. But at the same time, you can't work for an NFL team and do that. Like that's just the way that be. You can't be official about it. It has to be all quiet.
Yeah. Well, Bernie Kosar was one of the few good things the Browns had going for them this year, and they just took that away. And I guess he took it away, but
yeah,
I don't know. Browns fans, I'm not going to go there. I have nothing. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. I'm not going to say it. Let's just move on before I get myself in trouble with Clevelanders that still like me, which is probably not many. That's fine.
I think it's a perfect time. You have a quote to read. Why don't we lead off with that?
Ooh, story
ready?
time. Yes, I like story time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So Mandy Bell, obviously the Guardians, MLB.com, Guardians.com, whatever, MLB.Guardians.com. Reporter had a talk with, had an interview with Tito before the holidays. This is on January 7th, asking about Bo Naylor and the catching situation, and Francona's response to whether or not Bo Naylor would be on the opening day roster, because we talked about this. Francona said, "I don't know that we're done making moves. I think we've been pretty honest about how much we like Bo Naylor. Does that mean he's ready for opening day? I don't know if we're ready to say that. And if he isn't, that's not a knock on him. Let's let his play dictate how much he's ready." And that was after the interview. I'm sorry. The interview about that was probably before they made because I said that came out on January 7th, and the Cam Gallagher signing was the 4th, announced on the 4th. So that interview might have been done before the Cam Gallagher signing. At the time, they had Mabrice Valoria and, that was really it. So Cam Gallagher was the other one. But I don't know. I mean, I think that we've been saying for a couple of episodes now, a couple of weeks, that I don't think Bo Naylor is a lock for opening day. I don't think they want to do that right off the bat. So they're going to continue to look at the catcher market, I would imagine. Not much out there. It's pretty slim. Maybe they should have been in on Donnie Sands. I don't know. I really don't care for Donnie Sands that much. Not to. Yeah.
Quincy was the high man on him, I believe.
I wanted Logan O'Hoppe last year. That was the guy I wanted.
I was hoping they would trade Plesac for him. That was the guy I kind of.
Yeah.
That was the trade I was hoping to manifest last year.
Here's what I'm looking at. I have no idea. Again, we've talked about this. There's no roster fodder. There's no room. If they sign somebody, it's either got to be a minor league deal or they got to find a trade, because I just don't see how they're going to fit anybody else on the roster without making a trade. But maybe this guy. I'm still interested in Jorge Alfaro. How about you? Because you think he comes on a minor league deal. I saw a video clip of him from today. Before recording this, of him hitting a home run in a Caribbean offseason league. Big home run, flipped his bat, stared it down. And I'm like, okay, this guy has always had big power. We know he's got a great arm. The rest of the catching tools are
good pop, bad framing, right? That's what we saw with him.
I know he always had the reputation of having a good arm as a prospect. The arm wasn't the issue. Yeah, I think it was everything else that it was the framing and blocking that I think had been an issue for him.
Because I know Savant had him actually with one thing that was good. So I think his pop times, and again, he's not a small dude, but I think his pop times are pretty solid as well. If I'm remembering.
Yeah, and he's always had power as a hitter. I think he's essentially the unpolished, never really, pop time 96th percentile, max exit velocity 97th percentile, and then framing 37th percentile, and sprint speed 85th percentile. How about that? Sprint speed, good for a catcher. He's essentially the never made it version of Mike Zunino, right? Pop, or a lot of power, a lot of strikeouts, no walks, and great arm. But I don't know. I'd be interested in bringing Zunino. We already have Zunino. Jorge Alfaro in as like a camp tryout guy. I don't know if he'll take that, but I don't know. If they're still scouring the catching market, I'd be interested in him.
So I see here, Spot Track they still have Omar Narvaez, so that's not Roberto Perez and Gary Sanchez. Your personal favorite of yours, I know, is there.
Yes.
I'm a little bit surprised no one has
at
least taken a run. It's not like he was terrible a year ago, and the catcher market is pretty atrocious. It's pretty ugly, but that's why I'm kind of surprised he's still standing at this point in time. A lot of this is like retired players listed here on this list. Kevin Plawecki, round 2. You can't tell me Kurt Suzuki isn't retired, right? I mean,
he is retired, I believe.
Yeah, so they have him listed. I know Voit is retired. He's listed. It's an ugly list, but yeah, people constantly want to baseball explain to me why Bo Naylor is going to make this opening day roster, and every single quote from Tito is everything to the opposite of that. And if there's one position where they have not let rookies really in, it's catcher. So I would not be shocked if we see another invite. And again, I think invite is the key word because of what we talked about on Friday's show. Because if Alfaro comes in as an invite, then you don't have to add him to your 40-man until the end of camp. And guess what? The minute camp starts, you got a 60-man disabled list. And I mean, at first it seemed like a little bit of shenanigans with Cody Morris, but then it took him forever to get healthy, so it wasn't. But you have anything like that pop up, all of a sudden that clears a spot. It makes it a lot easier to juggle things, and yeah.
I hope nobody gets hurt to do that, but I mean, that's the only way they can add anybody if they don't make a move. Yeah, there's always somebody. I mean, always someone who's not on the 40, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, that quote could have come before the Cam Gallagher signing. I'm sure it did. I don't necessarily know that they feel like, okay, we're done. We added 2 former Royals catchers as minor league free agents. We're done shopping. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know who's out there, like who you can think about in the trade market. I know, except for, your guy from Miami. Which we'll talk about. Yeah. Besides him, I think it's Alfaro or bust. Unless they want to bring back Roberto Perez to give it another shot, but we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they add somebody else on an invite.
Gary Sanchez.
Also, you know what? Yeah, okay. I was gonna go somewhere else with that, but you know what? You just had to ruin it.
I did.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, I don't know. Has David Fry gotten him an invite yet to spring training?
I don't think so. I don't think we've heard he's officially.
I bet you he will. I bet you David Fry gets an invite to spring training. Although I don't know if they would rely on him as the backup catcher out of the gate. He's not on the 40 either, so I still wouldn't be surprised if he plays this year for them at some point. I don't know. They sent him to the AFL for a reason, right?
Yeah.
I know AFL just needs catchers, but I don't know. He's not on the 40 either, so we'll see.
Yeah. Let's switch over to the Marlins. They keep coming up because they've got pitching to trade. I kind of liked, I know some people won't love this, but I liked at Cleveland _tribe fan who responded to my thought on, because personally I would love to see Jesus Luzardo of all the Marlins pitchers. Like that's my target because he's got 5 years of team control and he's a lefty with some interesting upside. But their response was Reynolds to Miami, Luzardo to Cleveland, and then all the prospects to Pittsburgh. And I'm like, that would be perfect. That's the ideal. I also talked with the Marlins beat writer who, when I asked him, like, well, what exactly are they looking for? It's clearly help now. And he said first, third, and center field. And you and I are both high on Will Brennan, but we are higher than the consensus. It's hard to figure a deal like Brennan and Arias just does not seem to have enough to get you across covering third. I mean, John Kenzie Noel, that's the top prospects they have, maybe who can do first, third, and center field and help in the next calendar year. And I don't think that gets you Luzardo right now. I mean, maybe it does,
and I think,
but I doubt it.
Any of the guys, any of the pitchers they're shopping.
Yeah,
I mean, if they're truly looking to trade Trevor Rogers, they're going to be selling low. That would be a mistake, I think, because they're not going to get much for him coming off the season he had, even though he still missed a lot of bats. I do like Trevor Rogers a little bit, but yeah, any of those pitchers they're looking to trade, they're going to be looking for a guy in center field who is established. I don't know how much you can say they can really get for Edward Cabrera, but
health.
I don't know, just about anybody, though. It sounds like they're looking for established players. Then even if it's not like high upside guys like stars, they're looking for someone who is established in a quality big leaguer. So Cleveland, I mean, outside of trading Miles Straw, which I don't think Cleveland will do, and I don't even truthfully know if that would be enough for the Marlins to do it.
Maybe last year at this time, but
yeah, I just don't see there being a fit for them. I know, like you said, Jeff, the CLE_tribe fan, said about a 3-team deal, and I think that might make some sense, but it's going to depend on who Pittsburgh wants from Cleveland to facilitate that trade. And our Locked On Pirates guy, Ethan, right? Ethan is Locked On Pirates. Is that right?
Yep.
He had said that he doesn't think that Reynolds, I don't know if he heard something or if he has talked to anybody, but it sounded like he was saying Reynolds didn't want to be traded. It was just kind of a negotiation tactic to get the Pirates to up the offer, get back to the table. I don't know, but who knows? But yeah, I have a hard time seeing Cleveland being a match for Miami in any trade. I mean, Jesus Luzardo is really the only guy I would be interested in. I'm not really interested in Pablo Lopez because to me, he's a slightly better version of Zach Plesac. He's just more consistent, not quite as healthy, and I don't know. I don't see the need to trade anything for a guy like Pablo Lopez. Either go out and get somebody who's a little bit better, or just roll it back and leave open some room for one of your pitching prospects to come up. But yeah, to me, Luzardo is the only guy I would want, but I just don't see them being a match with the Marlins on paper.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like Lopez doesn't really raise your floor or your ceiling that much. He raises your floor, but not necessarily.
And he's going to cost a lot.
Yes, and he's going to start getting expensive in salary.
Well, not only that, but in terms of trades too, the Marlins are going to hold a high price on him because there's just no even trade in the pitching market yet, and pitching is expensive, and he's still got team control. They can kind of lord that over you, like, oh, this guy's got a lot of team control. He's a solid back end starter. So let somebody else pay that prospect cost. Like, I know everybody keeps saying Cleveland's got to use these prospects somehow. They don't have room for all of them, but you're not going to do it just to overpay to get a guy like Pablo Lopez. Like, it's one thing to do it for like a Jesus Luzardo or, Corbin Burns. I'm still going to wish cast that, but not for Pablo Lopez. And nothing against him, just knowing what the market's going to look like. It's not worth it.
Yeah. No, it's I agree. Luzardo's the one that I kind of have my heart set on. Let's take let's take one moment here before we dive into our third base prospects. The interesting group of players that don't go very deep, but might be better than you think on today's Locked On Guardians. But first, let's talk about our good friends over at Built Bar. One of my favorite sponsors in the history of this show, a delicious sponsor, a tasty sponsor. And now they are a sponsor who is available at Walmart. That's right. You can go to Walmart and try Built Bar. If you didn't want to pay for shipping and handling, you didn't want to deal with all of that, can go to Built Bar right now and try it. You can go to Walmart and try Built Bar, I should say. Right now, churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I recommend churro and coconut almond are available in 10 packs and 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. That's right. You get those at Walmart or at Sam's Club, owned by the same people. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. I would recommend coconut puffs. If you go to Sam's Club, you can get a 13-bar box with all other hit flavors. You can thank me later. Go to Sam's Club, Walmart, or you can go to BuiltBar.com and use that promo code LOCK15 to save 15% off your order, or you can check out all three and see which one gives you the best deal. But you are getting a delicious tasting protein bar that is good for you. That is BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCK15, or go to Sam's Club or Walmart. So third base, the reason I say maybe better than you think is because you might think, hey, who is there even? This is probably has the least amount of depth, but it is an interesting grouping in spite of that. There is Gabriel Rodriguez at the top, and then a lot of the players after that are maybe a debate if someone's going to end up there long-term who's not currently listed there. But why should people be curious about Gabriel Rodriguez? Nobody even wanted this dude in the Rule 5.
Yeah, I mean, after his 2021 season, I think it was looking pretty bad for him. Although he was only 19 and they were coming off the COVID year, and he was its full season ball for the first time. And I thought I had heard there had been conditioning issues with him going into that season, but who knows? Remember, this is a guy that had the highest signing bonus among position players in franchise history for international draft class or international signing classes. So this is the guy who had the highest bonus ever for position player. Yeah, he had a really nice season at Lake County. Cut down on the strikeouts quite a bit, very reasonable level. Improved his discipline and patience at the plate. Showed a little bit of pop. Also a really good glove. I was really impressed with him defensively at third base. I think when Cleveland signed him out of, I'm not really sure where he's from. I can't off the top of my head, but they signed him as a shortstop, and he is not a shortstop anymore. He's definitely moved off of shortstop, I would say.
Venezuela.
Okay. Yeah, he's definitely not a shortstop anymore. He played 3 games there this year. I didn't see any of those 3 games, but he played 72 at third base. And as far as his body type, I would say probably better fit for third base. Not that he's huge, but definitely not a rangy guy for short. But I really like the glove at third base. I like the arm. I think defensively he's pretty smooth over there. Reminds me a little bit of what Gio Urshela looked like as a prospect at third base, where the glove was starting to come around. Yeah, I'm interested to see what he can do. Unfortunately, Rodriguez had shoulder surgery at the end of in the offseason. He missed the final month of the regular season last year in Lake County, but he's only 20. He'll be 21 all of this season coming up. He should be at Double-A. Like I said, there's at least average raw power in there. I don't know how much of it he'll get to in the game, but there's some really nice upside there. And if he's not a star level player, he may not be as good as the bonus they gave him, but he should still be a nice player. So he is the top third base prospect in the system right now in a list full of very unimpressive players. And before anybody makes a comment or says anything, Judkensy Noel is not a third baseman. You can type it all you want on Twitter or write in the comments all you want that he can play, that he's versatile, he plays the corners. No. Judkensy Noel is a first baseman. He's a first baseman. He's a first baseman. He can maybe stand in the outfield and not be unplayable for 7 innings if you need the bat in the lineup, but he's a first baseman.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with Gabby is just like when we had access to some of the StatCast data for him, that's the other thing that kind of played into his favor. So it's the stuff that you don't necessarily get to see, but it's some of the stuff below the surface. We got to see a little bit of the minor league StatCast baseball data. Can't share that, but we had a small window of access, and his data was really, really good, to the point that kind of made both you and I go, oh, because here's the other thing. When a player is hurt, it makes them easier to take in the Rule 5 because it's easier to stash said player when they're going to have surgery. It's what happened with Santander. So I think we were both kind of almost expected him to get selected because the StatCast data was that good and the injury, but he's still here. Now, do we talk Dayan Frias next? Do we talk Jose Pastrano? Do we want to move Milan Tolentino to third base already? Brainel Delgado.
I don't know. Do you throw David Fry at third base? Like,
we've talked about him. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the natural position if he's an everyday guy, but just we know what David Fry is right now, right?
Yeah, he's a utility guy who can play some catcher at third and first. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that Dayan Frias. If I had to go with the guy number 2 at third base, I'd probably go with Dayan Frias. If we're keeping Fry as like a utility guy, I don't know that Frias necessarily has to end up at third base. He could. He played a lot of it last year, but he also played a lot of short, and I think he played a lot of second. I think he can. For me, he's a second or third baseman. I don't know if he stays shortstop long term. But he could probably play second or third, and I think that the arm should be okay at third base, but he might be the second best prospect at that position if you're talking about guys who play third. The problem with Frias is, though, I don't think he's going to have the bat for third base because I don't necessarily know if he is going to have power that plays there. So the bat's probably better at second base long term. That's my only concern there, but he can at least play there.
Yeah, I mean, he's just kind of an interesting guy. His name pops up at various points from people. Like he's one of those names kind of, wasn't he like a BP top 20 at one point or some, like, I feel like somewhere put him in their top 20 at one point in time. It's just kind of an interesting guy. Or maybe it was like Fangraphs was high on him. I can't remember. Somebody was high on him at one point in time. I'm sorry, it was Fangraphs. Yeah, they put Dayan Frias last year at 14th on their prospect list.
Yeah,
for Cleveland, which is very aggressive. I knew he was high somewhere, but
yeah,
I mean, they put him ahead of Noel a year ago, ahead of Logan Allen, Cody Morris, like pretty good prospects. Ahead of Bo Naylor.
Yeah, people really just bowed out on it. I understand Bo Naylor had to make some changes to his game in order to get back to where he was, but
Naylor was 28 at Fangraphs.
Talk about he was down. Talk about not giving a guy a mulligan. Like, I think a lot of prospects deserved a mulligan after 2021, after 2020, right? Like, he had a bad 2021, but like, I know he was at the alternate site, but still, I don't know. I was a lot easier grading guys after 2021 just because that was their first year back after everything. So, it's interesting. There are other guys that we could talk about. They're not. Again, it's not a great group. It's a bunch of maybes and a bunch of who knows utility guys. Like you said, Milan Tolentino could probably play third. I like him a little bit. Any of the shortstops like Arias, Rocchio, Tena can all play third if need be. I don't know about Angel Martinez. That's probably his third best position. Valdez can probably handle third. Cairo could, but Cairo to me isn't really a prospect at this point.
Yeah.
Juan Benjamin might be a guy worth keeping an eye on. He's pretty low on the list, and he was 19 last year, but Juan Benjamin is somebody worth at least remembering the name. I'm trying to look at my sheet here just to, again, all the names are not on Fangraphs because they just track guys they think you should know, but Arthur has the entire list.
Like Pastrano was a big money guy, so he's listed. But again, he's more of a shortstop. He's not. I want to say isn't he like under 5'11"? Like I feel like they're just putting guys. Yeah, he's 5'9". Like they're putting guys at third base just because Cleveland has no third base prospects. Yeah. So they're listing their overflow at third base to fill in those levels and those positions. And it's almost like that is their I won't say their dumping ground, but they're using it as like their flex position. Like how Cleveland talked about more flexibility. Right. It's become a flex position in the minors.
Well, yeah, because obviously third base is spoken for the next several years. I haven't had Pastrano ranked in any of my rankings in a couple of years because he just hasn't played. and he hasn't gotten out of the complex league. So that to me says something's not right if he's not getting out of there and he's not even playing all that much. I'm just trying to look at my list. Like Jose Devers, that's Rafael Devers' what, cousin, right? We
believe so.
figured out.
Not to be confused with the other Jose Devers, which I confused him with, who somehow on America got to the big leagues with the Marlins, who's also, I believe, their cousin.
Yes, they're both named Jose Devers. There's that. Unless you want to count Jose Ramirez's brother, who also is 20 years old, has not made it out of the complex league. That's really kind of it. It's a pretty sparse position for them. No surprise considering they're not really prioritizing it, and they realize that any of the shortstops they have, maybe minus Freeman, can play there. Fangraphs has Nate Furman listed as a second/third baseman. I don't know enough about Nate Furman's arm to know whether or not he can play third, but I don't know. We'll see. That's about all I have for third base. We Gabby Rodriguez, David Fry, if you want to count David Fry. Who else did I say? Juan Benjamin. Dayan Frias, Juan Benjamin, any of the shortstops, and then maybe either Tolentino or Valdez if you need to. Everybody else is kind of just minor league filler.
Tolentino is probably the one who I feel like is most likely to go, just because I feel like he's gonna get bigger and
he's got the arm.
Yeah, he definitely has the arm. Like I said, he was that first month was hitting over 400 and kind of came back to earth. So he's someone that certainly bears watching. They had his older brother in the system, and his dad was an announcer with the Angels, right? Like a very big baseball family. But we should take a break here. We're going to come back for our YouTube only portion of the show, and we're going to talk about the BP prospects list, which we had some agreements on, and then we had some guys that let's put it this way, that BP put in the teens that are closer to 50 for Justin and myself. So stay tuned for that over on the YouTube side of things. And go Guardians, go.
So this list.
This isn't a knock on anyone. I don't dive too deeply into lists anymore. Unless I had a prior relationship with someone, because I've kind of not as active as I used to be. I don't really know people everywhere. So I don't honestly know who BP's Guardians writer is. So
this just says it was Jeffrey Padanastro, who I'm familiar with. I did I knew, I'm going to feel bad because I don't actually know his name off the top of my head, but I do know one of their guys who was doing the Midwest League last year because I've seen him on Twitter before, and we follow each other. So I don't know if he had any input there. I asked our buddy Pat if he had any input. He did not.
You'd think they would have used him.
Yeah, Pat was at Lake County last year in Akron and Columbus, so I don't know why they didn't, but
and
BP,
he's
show our guy Pat some love. He knows the system.
And on top of that, Pat was my co-host last year for a bit, and he made a case for Arias to be the top prospect in the system. So you'd think that alone would give him enough reason for, as BP loves Arias so much, that alone would be all the bona fides that he needs for them. But
maybe that's why they like him so much, just because of Pat. So the top 10. I think this is the first major outlet. I mean, okay, Baseball America did theirs. I lied. Baseball America did theirs. We didn't talk about theirs. We could talk about that another day, or we could talk about it now, depending on how fast this goes. But all right, so BA and BP have done their list for the Guardians. I can tell you Prospects Live has theirs coming out this week because I worked on that one. Fangraphs I know is coming soon, and then who knows when Pipeline will be done. But BP had the big three. And their top three. And I got to be honest with you, outside of Williams, although I don't know. Okay, no. Williams to me is 2 or 3, depending on how you want to order things. The only guys I feel like I can argue number 1 are Bybee or Espino. And they have Espino 1, Williams 2, Bybee 3. I would probably go other way with that. I'll hear arguments for those two. And I don't know if you want to say Williams number 1, that's fine too, I suppose. But to me, it's Espino and Bybee, and then Williams for me right now. They had Valera 4. They had Chase DeLauder 5, which I think is
super
very aggressive.
Because he barely played.
Yeah.
He looked pretty bad when he did play. That's my problem with that.
No, he didn't look bad. The only teams he looked bad against was Florida State and Parker Messick.
The good teams,
that was the only team he looked bad
but
against.
he was bad against Bryce Hubart as well, which I get. Most guys struggle with those lefties, but it's he barely played. He looked bad facing good competition, but exactly the last good extended performance he got was the Cape, which was over a year ago because of injury. So it's like that's super aggressive for a recent draft pick who hadn't played in months and months and had a very truncated. I mean, you're basing that off his Cape, which is very aggressive in my opinion to do because it's still a small sample size with the Cape. I mean, that's you're if you're putting him at 5, then you must have viewed him as a top 10 talent in that entire draft.
Which, if he had played the whole year, maybe he was. I don't know. Well, I guess, maybe Cleveland pounced on the fact that he fell because of his injury and didn't get to play an extended amount of time. We'll see. And obviously, they really love Cape Data, and that was where he was good. Bo Naylor at 6, I have no issue with that. I mean, you and I both have Bo Naylor a little bit higher than that, but I have, it's fine. Gabriel Rodriguez at 7. Like you said, BP has been a lot higher on Arias' ability to hit. They believe he's going to hit like a regular, and I feel like he's going to hit more like a fringe regular, more of a backup type. Even though the potential is there, I just don't know if he's going to reach it to the swing and miss. And then they have Rocchio 8, which I think is kind of low. And I have some concerns about Rocchio, and we'll get into those when we do our prospect lists. But 8 feels really low for Rocchio to me.
Yeah.
They have Logan Allen at 9, which
I feel like there's no, I just feel like when you and I have done our discussions, there's almost like a very clear top 8 guys who need to be in this top 10, and a pretty almost like I said, at 8 players, we are probably universal agreement. And those 8 guys, not all are even in the top 10, and some of them are at the back half.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's not the 2022 list. Am I looking at the wrong list? Hang on. Uh-oh. No, I had that right. Okay, they still have Valera 4. I lied.
Yeah, because if they had DeLauder, they couldn't have been last year's list.
That's true. Good call. Logan Allen at 9. You know what? I mean, Logan Allen had a tough time at AAA last year, but otherwise he was fantastic. So
it's also just a limited ceiling.
There is a limited ceiling there, but I think there's a lot of effectiveness. There's a lot of people who feel like there's reliever risk with him just because he is a 3-pitch pitcher and they may not have enough tools to succeed. I don't know. So I don't know. I have no issue with that. That's a good variance range. And they have Angel Martinez number 10. I'm glad to see other people jumping on the Angel Martinez bandwagon. He is definitely a top 10 prospect for me in the system right now.
Did BA not put him in the top 10? To me, I looked at that as low. I thought
BA and BP both have him in the top 10. So Baseball America had him 8th and BP's got him 10th. And I 100% agree. He's a top 10 prospect for me now.
Yes.
I don't have any issues with their top 10, just maybe the order of it. You could probably say DeLauder, maybe right outside the top 10. Here's the more interesting guys that you and I talked about off the air. We're like, oh, that's interesting. So they have Justin Campbell 11, no issue with that. They have Jason Chourio at 12, and I'm extremely excited for Jason Chourio. Just it's so hard to rank DSL guys because there's so much limited out there. I don't know how much they've sourced their list, and there's just very little video. But it's like, man, 17-year-old complex league player. I know he's got the bloodlines with Jackson Chourio, and
if his last name wasn't Chourio, would he be there? And I think the answer is no.
Yeah, if it was like a blind ranking, and
now he's 15th on mine because of what we've had in information. But again, I'll be the first to admit, if it wasn't his brother helped raise his ship this year.
I agree. I mean, here's the thing about stats too. Like, a lot of us are scouting the stat line for a guy like Chourio because you can't see him because he's over in the Dominican and there's like little, Instagram video clips and that kind of stuff is out there. But just taking stats and data from the DSL is so worthless because that if we're talking about how stats from high A don't translate, right? From the DSL, they're not going to translate. The ceiling is super high for Jason Chourio. So I mean, if you want to say you're ranking him there on the ceiling, that's fine. There definitely is some of his brother baked into that. But the floor, I mean, obviously there's a lot of risk there because you just don't know. The numbers were good. And then they had Cody Morris at 13. I think that's kind of low for Cody Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Even though if you're worried about the health. But if Cody Morris is a reliever, I still feel like, I know you don't do grade rankings anymore, but like a 50 prospect is obviously still an average everyday player. Even in a bullpen role, like you're talking about a guy who can be worth 1 win in the bullpen, right? A 50 grade reliever. I feel like Morris, even if he is relegated to the bullpen because he has health issues, I feel like he can still be a 1-win player as a reliever. So that seems low to me. He can still be a high impact reliever. I'm guessing you're on your phone, and I'm looking at Twitter too right now while we're recording this. It sounds like the Twins have some momentum with Carlos Correa.
Yes.
That'll be interesting to talk about. I guess we'll get into that tomorrow if a deal gets done because the whole Mets thing is unresolved. But oh boy. All right.
I mean, it's going to be fascinating just from the perspective of like how, I mean, these medicals have to be atrocious. Like there's something terribly frightening in his, I mean, it's almost one of those things where it's like, so someone in our comments asked, what happened with Danny Salazar on last week's show. And I kind of responded in the comments. It's like, from what I understood, the Guardians knew that arm was a ticking time bomb. It was just a matter of time before it fell apart. And when it did, it never came back. There must be something in those medicals like that, where Correa, it's like, if you give him a 10-year contract, understand after year 5, it's going to be a disaster.
Maybe. I don't know. The Salazar thing didn't have the build, and it was also Correa's already had a better career than Salazar ever had.
Yes. No, totally.
Salazar also had I know someone wanted to hear more about that. Salazar also was not working as hard between starts as the other guys. Like he was not putting in the effort that Kluber and Tomlin and I'm trying to think who was on the staff at that time. I guess Bauer was here at that point. He wasn't working as hard as the other guys in between starts, Carrasco. So that was part of it too. And then the Guardians saw that, and that's why the arm blew out. And the guy needed better between start routines to build up. But that's that. You want to get back to the prospect list from BP?
Yeah. No, I think I think Morris has to be in the top 10 based on what we saw a year ago, and with multiple projection systems that view him as like one of their top 5 pitchers in terms of what they'll do next year. To me, it's kind of weird. I understand it's reliever risk. Like if you're going to put him lower, it all comes down to that.
Do you think though, if he's like I said, if he's relegated to a bullpen role because you don't trust that he can hold up over a whole season, if he's a healthy reliever all year, I still think he's good enough to be an impact reliever. Like I said, a reliever who's worth 1 win. That's a pretty good reliever. And to me, that's still an impact player. I still think that's a top 10 worthy player.
Yes.
You're talking about an impact reliever. The other guys we were kind of curious about, Jose Tena at 14. I actually do like Tena quite a bit, but the approach at the plate is so risky. Everything else is fine. I like the approach, everything but the approach.
He's just had some ups and downs. It's not like, listen, I learned a lot from Bo Naylor last year. It's why I'm not like completely dishing on Brian Lavastida. It's why I'm the importance of patience and seeing more than 1 year. But Tana's had multiple ups and downs at points. And I think he's a utility guy. Like I understand the physical tools are there, and he has a great glove. Someone you and I both have closer to 50 is Yordis Valdez, who was the former 2nd round pick. Like Tena is the plus version of Valdez in my mind. I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with that, but Tena is a very high floor. High floor guy. And I don't think the ceiling is all that high either, because the approach, and there's great bat speed, but I don't think it's going to turn into much with the rest of that profile. I think he's a utility guy 100% one way or another.
I think the ceiling is there for him. I just don't think he's going to get to it because of the approach. The ceiling the ceiling for Taylor to me is a 2020 player with good defense and probably a low on base percentage.
I just don't think that approach allows you to get to that. Is kind of my take.
I don't think so either. And he really struggles with breaking stuff too. So it's a lot of risk. They have Petey Halpin at 15, which was about right to both of us.
Yeah.
No issue there. I love Petey Halpin. Jake Fox at 16 was the real kind of surprise for us. I know a lot of people who are fans and love Guardians prospects like we do are really high on Jake Fox. From watching the Hellcats last season and just kind of looking at some of the numbers, and looking behind, we saw, like you said, a little bit of the data. Fox's walk rate just seems like it's so buoyed by being passive and understanding that high and low A pitching is so bad that you don't have to swing because why? Because they're so bad. The pitching down there was horrible. So I feel like it's inflated a little bit by the walk rate and his age. As I saw Keith Law and Eric Longenhagen write once, I can't say this on the network here, but it gets the models excited was the nice term.
Jake
the high
Bauers,
walk rate and age. Same
Jake
thing.
Bauers was essentially that. And there was a point in time where teams were goosing those models intentionally. They knew that it would increase value. And I think that's exactly how a Jake Bauers gets created. The other thing I just want to point out is like walk rate has shown no value in terms of evaluating future success of big leaguers. It is not consistent. It is not something that predicts any success. So when a player's production is like 40% walk rate, the problem with that is it literally doesn't translate. And it doesn't matter if it's in the low. And again, this is Chris Mitchell at Cato, who we keep referencing, who's now part of the Twins. But his work just plain and simply showed that like you think walk rate matters, and then it didn't. Like it's not indicative of future success, nor does it bode to anything. So when that profile is so heavy because of the walk rate, then I just kind of have to take a step back and be like, oh, do I want to? How much can I put? So he's in the 40s for me. It's not necessarily like, and don't take that as like he's terrible, because I mean, listen, like I love Nate Furman. He's in the 20s. Brian Levestida, remember I didn't want to drop him too far. He's in the 20s. Tim Herron, who was on this show for me, I think he's got, upside as a lefty reliever who's still like growing into his athleticism. He's like in the 30s. It's a really deep system with some really interesting players across the board, all over the place. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it's a super deep system. And and we haven't, they graduated 12 guys, 12 guys got to the big leagues a year ago, but I mean, a lot of guys still aren't proven. Like Palacios and Freeman don't even count on this list, and I don't think we even know what they are yet. Yeah,
for sure. There's still guys that are figuring it out. So yeah, no knock on Fox. It's just it's a good system. BP had Curry at 17. Okay, that's fine. Noel at 18. That sounds about right. Although they have him listed as a right fielder, which like I guess. Yeah, Noel could stand in right field. I would lift him for a defensive replacement as soon as you have a lead. I don't have a problem with him there. I am a little bit lower just because I have some major concerns with the risk. Tanner Burns at 19 I thought was really interesting. Maybe these guys are seeing something we don't. I'm trying to think. BA doesn't have him in their top 10. I don't know where they'd have him outside of the top 10, but I don't know. Burns has yet to be really healthy for a full season. He had shoulder problems and elbow problems, and his velocity has waned up and down a little bit. The stuff is solid. Like I don't doubt how solid the stuff can be, but the build and injury history to me, and the lack of being able to hold his velocity as a starter, to me says he's a reliever, and I can't rank him 19 right now, as high as 19, without knowing that in the health. So that was an interesting one to me.
Yeah, they listen, when he was drafted, the big concern was like he couldn't maintain velocity as a starter, and then it just I think he's a reliever. I just think at this point in time, I'm moving on to him as a reliever, and he has a chance there, but he's like 50th on mine or 49th. It's not a. I don't. It feels like, again, maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe there's some data we don't have. Maybe there's something we don't informationally have access to. But this feels like a case of, hey, he was a recent first round pick, and the only reason Carson Tucker isn't here is because there's no way to. He has been so bad that everyone has been completely off of him.
Hey, for as good as this team is, they've gotten better at drafting and developing. Sometimes they get things wrong, and Carson Tucker might be one of them. I don't know. Carson Tucker could finally play this year. He played, for 100 games finally, and maybe he'll be good. But
and in fairness to them, Carson Tucker wasn't a punt pick because he was valued, but like he was not valued where he was taken. That was, I've talked about many times, when you sign a guy under slot, it's like trading down in the NFL or the NFL draft. And Carson Tucker went about 40 spots higher than he was valued because he was willing to sign for a set amount of money. The Guardians used that money to get, I believe Logan Allen got near full slot. So it wasn't Logan Allen, but when he got them P.D. Halpin, who you and I discussed as a top 15 prospect, and so did BP. So yes, Carson Tucker isn't necessarily working out as much as you'd hope a top 30 prospect would be, but understand they took him at I think 24 or so, even though he was valued close to like 54, so they could get P.D. Halpin, who was valued basically getting 2 second rounders instead of 1 first, because they thought it was some similar value across the board. And even if Carson Tucker doesn't work out, if P.D. Halpin does, then hey, guess what? That pick still works.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, is that just because that guy doesn't work out, yeah, it's a first round pick. Yeah, you have other guys you could have taken, and you kind of have to factor that in. Like, who did they pass on in the first round that could have been better? I mean, I think some people thought they would like Nick Bitsko there. I know I like Nick Bitsko, but he's not been healthy. No. But you have to look at who you passed up to make those deals if Tucker doesn't work out. But that's a good way to look at it, is that they use that pick to trade down and make sure they can get Logan Allen and P.D. Halpin if they were there. That's an interesting way to think about it. That does factor into the draft and how they save money. Number 20 for them for BP was Doug Nikhazy. I feel like out of anybody doing prospect lists for Cleveland, I think I like Doug Nikhazy the most. And I don't even have Doug Nikhazy that high because I think there's a lot of relief risk there. And I would be the first to tell you I would be excited about Doug Nikhazy, the reliever. I just don't know if I can go top 20 with him right now, especially considering he scrapped his changeup last year. It was going to work on it over the offseason. So for like a month of last year, he wasn't throwing a changeup and had a hard time throwing strikes. The nice thing about Nikhazy is, like, when he throws strikes, guys didn't hit him last year. Like, if you go and look at the numbers, he gave up way less hits than innings pitched. It was just he couldn't throw strikes. And he might be a 2-pitch pitcher, although the slider might be okay. But that 2-pitch mix would be great out of the bullpen. I just don't know right now if I can rank him in the top 20.
Yeah, he's in the 40s for me, but I'll admit there's some bias because I've just thought since draft day he's a reliever. So that's my own personal bias showing up in my ranks, which happens. Maybe I'm not supposed to admit it, but it's the truth.
Yeah. We can get into BA's list the other day. I forgot they dropped there. That's my bad, because I like the guys at BA quite a bit. And I like the guys at PP too, because I have family there. And
I don't, like I said, I know Pat there. I'm just out of the game. I've been out of the writing game for a while now, so I don't. Who I think I asked you last time. It's not Teddy, even though Teddy used to have Ohio ties. I don't know who did the BP list.
I think it's Teddy. It
was Teddy. Okay, so yeah, Teddy did some writing for the Plain Dealer back in the day.
Good guy.
He had some Ohio ties, so I like Teddy. Teddy's a good guy.
Yeah, I like the entire BA staff. They're good people.
Yeah, and Carlos is the best. He's like one of the nicest people you can ever hope to meet. So,
and Jeff Ponce too. Yeah,
I never knew Jeff. Because he's part of that Prospects Live crew you were with, right?
Yeah. I had
everyone loves what he does. I know he's like one of the rising gems of the prospect scene himself.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know Jeff, but no one has ever. It's only good things. Before I misspeak, it's only good things for Jeff. So yeah, it seems like a good group there. But we're at an hour, so let's cut it out. Does anyone else remember that Nickelodeon show? Remember, cut it out.
That was Full House.
No,
Billy Gladstone.
Yes, but he had a Nickelodeon like show that he did this on. I think even before that, it was like
Before Full House.
It was a talk show that Dave Coulier had. Comment if you remember this. David Coulier talk show on Nickelodeon. If you remember this, you're gonna have to comment below. I don't know if it ran concurrent. I don't know if it ran concurrently, but I mean that whole Nickelodeon thing was Canadian to begin with, so you can't do it on television, all Canadian. So I think it might have done that. So yeah, fill our comments with that if you remember the Dave Coulier talk show that was on Nickelodeon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I won't say, but you were right. All right. Well, we will got out of here. We'll be back tomorrow.
We'll get out of here. Never know what's going to happen in the last minutes. But thank you all for listening, rating, and reviewing. Downloading, it helps. In terms of the show itself, we are 1,174 subscribers and rising on YouTube. Thank you to everyone who's doing your part. We're monetized, but we're also getting really close to actually making money on it. So I want to thank you all who are watching and letting those ads play for at least 30 seconds. I'll throw that out there. If you got nothing else to do, it's helpful to the show. And hopefully Correa doesn't sign with the Twins because he does make them better next year, even if long term it might hamstring them. That's my final take on Correa for now. But
come back tomorrow on that.
Yeah, we'll see. And how we end every show, go Guardians, go.